Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about movement in the U.S. Senate on Supreme Court ethics. The whole area is incredibly sort of roiled now, and the recent spate of revelations involving Justice Alito just sort of redoubles the pressure. And to date, Senator Dick Durbin, who is the leader of the Senate Judiciary Committee and is really the point person on this, has been indolent, I guess, in the view of especially the movers and shakers on this and firebrands in the House, especially Jamie Raskin and certain advocacy groups who are sort of scratching their head and saying, why are you not pushing harder? There was some suggestion that Durbin wanted to play nice and that pushing this might jeopardize the movement of further judicial nominees. There's been over 200 and about 15 or so remain, but the Republicans already announced that, get this, in retribution for the New York, 12 persons in New York on charges brought by New York state government have convicted President Trump. They are not going to be confirming any more judges nominated by President Biden. Go figure. But anyway, Durbin, under this pressure from especially the left flank, has said, all right, there's a bill pending, the ethics bill that would do a number of things. It would more stringent rules for gift and travel disclosure, recusal rules, and give a means of review, Supreme Court decisions on recusal, which right now just are up to the individual justice. So there's a bill, and he doesn't believe that they can beat a filibuster. Remember, if without 60 votes, you can't close debate. That's the filibuster, and there wouldn't be 60 votes here, even though there would be over 50 to support the bill. But what Durbin's going to do is move that bill for unanimous consent. It will fail. Lindsey Graham already has said he will vote against it. But when that does fail, there will be a recording of individual votes. So the whole Senate will have to go on record, increases the pressure somewhat on Republicans to say, no, actually, I'm against ethics for the Supreme Court. So that's a sort of baby step by Durbin. The whole area, just to lay it out a little, is really difficult and kind of murky, because if they were to pass this bill and the House would pass this bill, and the president would sign the bill, the Supreme Court might well strike it down as a violation of separation of powers. And then what? You have a kind of a stalemate, and how would that break through? You have at the same time a lot of insistence by people on the left, Dan Goldman in Congress, kind of carrying the baton on this, saying, it's got to go to Chief Justice Roberts. He's the one who has to, in particular, there's the general issues of all the ethical violations, and there's the concrete issue that Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, especially Alito, having expressed views on the whole January 6th debacle, is sitting on a case, especially the immunity case. And Goldman and others say Roberts it has to fall to the Chief Justice to take care of this and force them to recuse. Roberts wants none of that. The tradition of individual justices deciding for themselves is very strong, and it would be quite a departure from that tradition for him to just try to steamroll over them. Indeed, it could well be that Alito and Thomas would just say, pound sand as to the Chief Justice, and we'd be in another sort of crisis or stalemate. That is the immediate context that all this comes up in, especially the immunity case that we're going to hear as early as tomorrow about, and otherwise within the next few weeks. and Alito won't have recused on it, and he will have voted in a way that helps Trump overall. He won't vote for Trump to have immunity, but he'll vote it for him overall, and it's a big mess, and it's very unclear there's anything to be done about this mess. Jamie Raskin has a kind of ingenious, but a proposal that Durbin is also referring to, that Durbin's getting pressure to try to enact, which is in essence to try to bring a lawsuit that would force Justices Alito and Thomas to recuse, an action under the recusal provision. Raskin wrote a big piece in, I think, the New York Times laying it all out, but may not hold together by its own terms. And I say this as someone whose admiration for Jamie Raskin is essentially unbounded, but this is a very creative proposal. And then B, we have in each of these instances, and this is the sort of real bottom line here, the practical politics or the practical law, constitutional law of how it works if Alito or Thomas just fold their arms and say no. And would this lawsuit be legally cogent? I think probably the Supreme Court would reject it on separation of powers grounds. But if they didn't, could it really force Alito to recuse as a practical matter, and to do so, within days, because the opinion is trying to come out? So I think we have a bad crisis and a black eye, two black eyes maybe in the Supreme Court, and it's a political issue and probably nothing but. No, I agree that Durbin ought to be more aggressive. I myself have made clear that I think potentially the issue of Alito's account to Congress and its apparent contradiction from witnesses in the documentary record, you need to get to the bottom of it, because if he has lied to them on this issue, it's exceptionally grave. But the fact of the matter, and that's something Durbin could be doing and he isn't doing, but basically, we've got a political situation, and I don't see a remedy stronger than it's being used on political, in the overall sort of political context of, putting pressure on Republicans, as Durbin is doing today, calling them out for being against ethics, continuing to shine a harsh spotlight on the court if they won't self-remediate, or, fancy word for take their own action, which they will not. It's a real clusterfuck, I think is the legal term. And I don't see a way out other than a political solution and an argument for keeping Trump as far as possible away from any further Supreme Court appointments, i.e. in November. But that's the state of play, and we will have on the record now many, if not most, Republicans in the Senate saying, we don't want to do an ethics bill. And, are there people who will pay attention? It's a pretty inside Washington issue. But to the extent people do pay attention, it nudges the ball forward and makes the Democrats look more concerned with what's clearly a really bad problem of Supreme Court ethics. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.